Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Dev Talk Show on November 21st. So, Thanksgiving week here in the US. I imagine a lot of folks are starting to be on PTO. Maybe they took the week. Maybe they won't be in tomorrow. Maybe they won't be in tomorrow and Friday. I imagine maybe a lot of you watching are beginning to see that going on as well. How is that going for you, Rich?
It's pretty quiet around here. Although we do have, I think we do have somebody coming in with a customer conversation today, so we'll have some more people in the house. But yesterday was really quiet. But that's what you expect this week, and that's kind of why I don't mind working, because you can get some good stuff done when that happens.
I've done the same thing in the past where I've said, okay. So I've worked at a place where the week between Christmas and Thanksgiving, Christmas and New Year's was very busy, was very light.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we would go on a vacation then. But if I got an opportunity and it just didn't make sense to go on vacation or anything, and I'd say like, man, I'll get a lot done that week.
So save the vacation time and get caught up.
Yeah, it's like the big catch up can happen right then. So we are live on Twitch, on YouTube, on my personal LinkedIn, and on Twitter. And I actually think I can get us the link. Oh, whoops! I started talking somewhere.
Uh-oh.
Where did that come from? Where did that come from? Oh, there it is. Okay. Sorry. Sorry about that. Trying to run everything off one machine. So, can you imagine that would... So here it is. Here's the LinkedIn. We'll get this into our chat. We are on LinkedIn right there. That's going to Twitch and YouTube chat right now. And I think we have 9 followers. And the goal is, if we're able to get this organization to stream on LinkedIn, I think we would love to do that. So,
and that is one more than we had yesterday, because we only had 8 yesterday.
Oh, cool. All right. So thank you very much.
Yes.
I don't think I post there enough. That probably doesn't help. And then,
it does seem to show up when we do a show. So there's that. So I think much like being here and online, I think will help visibility.
Yep. And so it's going to be a light show today. If you're tuning in, you're wondering what we're going to do. It's going to be pretty light. There was a very interesting blog post from Amanda Silver, and I'm not going to remember her exact title right now, but she's near the very top at Visual Studio. I know it's a VP, but what I never remember is principal, VP, corporate VP. I don't remember. Very near the top of running the Visual Studio product team. And was talking about platform engineering, which I think is a really interesting topic. And then we also want to start looking at testing for the Dev Talk Show website. So we might get a light introduction to that today. There are some definite tests that I think I want to build, even for the limited thing we have going right now. So,
yeah, it should be fun. So, to complete your thought, Amanda is... Oh, it went away. Hang on. I just had it.
I didn't want to get her title wrong. Yeah.
Teams.
I think I have it here. As soon as I get...
There we go.
The screen
DevDiv, corporate vice president, DevDiv, PM, and for UX and some of the 1ES, which is the enterprise, the product system, product platform group. So,
on the end of the blog post, CVP of Product and General Manager for Microsoft's first-party engineering systems developer division. So, in fact,
there you go.
Maybe just saying Visual Studio is very light.
It is light. There's a lot more in there than that.
It feels like we're talking about how Microsoft gets things done coding. That, like,
engineering all up. Yeah.
Huge. Oh, right. Coding plus the delivery, plus the QA, plus all of it. Documentation, I imagine, interacting with customers.
Documentation.
Yeah. I've followed Amanda a long time. And it's interesting because she uses the term platform engineering, which is a term that I'm hearing more and more. I think that maybe, I'm going to take a stab that 5 years ago, we might not have been using this term so much, but it was still a thing that some organizations were trying to do.
Yeah.
And maybe now we have a better name for it, or a name. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, just from the conversations, it probably more recently has started to creep into the conversation when we think about, it was probably the last month or so where the customer had, specifically asked, hey, we want to understand platform engineering and how it relates to us.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to look for something that supplies the definition. I think this is interesting here. The answer is to focus on the developer experience. And I think so part of it is we already know that Microsoft was in the business of building tools for developers because they were building, and this is long before there was ever a .NET or even a Visual Studio.
Mm-hmm.
There was VB, there was Visual Basic. Before that, there was QBasic, which there was still an editor that sat in your console on your DOS machine. I mean, so maybe the focus was more on just people need a tool to get something done, or maybe even more accurately, we at Microsoft need a tool to get something done. So let's kind of make it a little bit less garage feeling, so that we can give it out to the developers out there too. But now we're well past that to say it's more than just needing an IDE or an editor and maybe a hard disk to store some code on. Oh, and then maybe a repository. And this is where it gets crazy. Now maybe I need a repository to put source code in, but now it's how's the code going to get built and out there? And then now in the modern world, a development team is thinking about the machines and services they're going to use. Are these cloud services? Are these virtual machines? Are they containers? Is there orchestration? Are you going to have to own building all that?
Yeah.
And then how does that comply with corporate policies that eventually come along and say, no, you can't just provision anything you want, for two reasons: budgetary and security.
Right.
Budgetary is one of them, but there's also the security of, do I really want just anybody building some kind of database service and then maybe putting important technical compliance regulated information there and not getting it right, and now we're in trouble?
Yeah, definitely. And I think part of this that I think overlays on top of this as we go through it is, well, what is the day in the life of a developer, right? What is it? You talked a little bit about the tooling and, kind of how we've progressed into, from just a text editor kind of idea up through having the tooling be very integrated with what I do as a developer, whether it is not only checking in code, but looking at the, creating the build scripts and being able to see how that's progressing and looking at what my cloud environment looks like and all of those things. And keeping the developer inside of that platform where they're happy and able to write code, but also get a sense of what the rest of the environment is like.
Yeah. I don't know, there's probably a lot of ways to look at this, but sometimes I think of it like the portal for your business, where we have an Azure portal, and GitHub in a way is a portal to your source code. And in our case yesterday, we used it to build actions. So it was our CI, our continuous integration, and it deployed the code. But it's like I need a portal for my engineering work at work.
Right.
We're going to build this new application and it's going to need a server. And in the past, what that usually meant was, okay, well, every organization is different, but we're going to have to engage the infrastructure team, let them know we need a new server. They're going to go get some certificates. they've probably got a whole process they go through, maybe even a checklist. The checklist might even be manual. Hopefully somebody puts on a calendar somewhere to renew that certificate next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel so there's part automation here, I think, but it's also part trying to reduce the complexity. We talked about this a little bit with .NET Aspire. Was
Mm-hmm.
Glenn was I had him freeze frame him on the screen with all the little thought bubbles of, as a developer, you start thinking about, okay, I have an app to build, but now I got to think about what's the platform I build it on, and what's the technology, and how do I get platform specific secrets stored, and how do I deploy it onto what machines, and how do I manage that, and what's the orchestration look like? And then at the end he has that one that's just like, I hate it here. So yeah.
And it's funny when you talk about it that way. I mean, you can think about, I mean, probably going back to build and some of the things we talked about there. There's IDE focused stuff, right? Visual Studio Code, whatever it might be. There's integrations with that to your SCM, your source control management environment. So whether that's DevOps or GitHub, you've got the integration to that. It could be that some of the things you were talking about are getting handled by things that we've talked about here with dev containers, or things that we haven't talked about yet with DevBox, being able to have your own virtual machine in the cloud with all of your stuff on it that's attached to your project, right? Because it needs to know what repository am I pulling code from, so that you have, your everything kind of there waiting for you when you jump in. All of those, it's kind of a continuation of those things that are starting to be put out, and you start to see them all overlaid together. That there is an ability to make that getting on board with code or getting on board to help out with a project much simpler for the developer.
Yeah, I appreciate that you also brought up the tooling as well, the environment, like how much time gets wasted on the day one, which sometimes becomes the first 2 weeks experience for a developer, and maybe longer.
Sure.
I can think of some projects in my current position that I'm only kind of really digging into now after several months, and still having to go find a team member who knows how to set it up and that can help you with that weird error you're getting. Oh, I've seen that before. And then it's great that they've seen it before. It's awesome that the tribal knowledge exists. But now it's so easy to just be like, okay, thanks for helping me fix it. And then now, boom, it's tribal knowledge again, instead of is there anything we can do to prevent this to happening to the next developer, either through automation, documentation, just something, anything.
Yeah.
And
that's not to just to take on that. I don't want to take you off target where you're going, but I think one of the interesting things I've heard is not just infrastructure as code, but infrastructure of, my environment as a user. I was talking to, I probably, this is, I was talking to one of the folks over at HashiCorp, and we had a session with them a couple of weeks ago, and, they're bringing people on board, and onboarding them is a scripted environment, right? So if I come in and I'm part of this organization, there are things that get created for me, things that they get access to, things that wind up on their machine, all because of the fact that the onboarding process is a scripted process, just like we would for an environment. So it kind of, that thought of, well, that's pretty cool. How would we do that for a developer coming on board? And there are things when you look at Terraform, and we haven't looked really deeply at Terraform other than talking about it as an infrastructure as code language, but there's a component in there that lets you, when you're starting a new project, script out the GitHub repository, add the teams to the repository with the right permissions, and basically give you an environment when you do a new project that is repeatable for every new project you do.
Yeah, right. Like, here's the baseline, instead of go get the repository created, because it's easy to miss one thing.
Yeah.
Or not do everything in a similar way. I mean, not that we're looking for sameness and everything, but when your library of repositories grows sufficiently large, I don't know what that number is. Now you're starting to reach for things like, how do I just find what I'm looking for?
Yeah.
And if the teams have, and so I don't know what tooling you have, like, but I can just think of in Azure repos as part of Azure DevOps, there's this little drop down in a project with repos, and that thing can, once that thing gets to like say 50, it starts to get difficult.
Yeah.
So some places rely on like alphabetization.
Yeah.
Yeah. I should have just said alphabetizing, right?
That's
a word that's for some reason I could get out, but the other word was like, you never say this word. I'm not even sure if it is a word. But yeah, just having it alphabetized, that helps. But now you got to start asking yourself, are we really in the weeds of thinking about what we name our repos so that they maybe you want that so that products or systems, entire systems maybe are grouped more together.
Yeah.
Then what happens when you change your mind?
Yeah.
Or famously, what happened to me at a place, it already happened when I'd gotten there, is they'd gone with namespacing that started with the company name. So company name, something, 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 and eventually, and I'm talking, when I say namespacing, I mean C# namespaces. And then that company was purchased. And it never changed. So it still had the old name in there for, I mean, probably I would be willing to bet to this day. And I had somebody there say, like, that's why you don't put the company name in. You use like the product name or something that, of course, then again, product names, I suppose, change too. But
yeah. Well,
I thought it was interesting that the blog post points to this section in Learn, which then gives you a definition for platform engineering.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So if I go back to the blog post, Amanda points to this area in Learn, platform engineering guide. I can go there. And so, yeah, looks just like it. And I thought, well, what overview? What are they saying? What are they saying it is? And you're saying, just to read it, platform engineering is a practice built up from DevOps principles that seeks to improve each development team's security, time to business value through improved developer experiences and self-service within a secure, governed framework. So the self-service part, I don't know if we totally touched on, but that's when I was kind of talking about like a portal to do work. This isn't, we're trying to get away from practices of, in order to do anything, I've got to talk to a ton of different teams, get a bunch of different requests done, even down to the little things like getting ports open. And it's not that those things aren't important. They are. It's just that they've become so rote that the question becomes, well, can't we automate these with a set of secure and governed rules that basically say, well, here's what that human was going to do anyway. Right. And now they can go solve more interesting problems rather than wait around for a ticket that says get a new machine provisioned.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, that waiting around is never fun. So, because you want to get up and running, you want to be productive, you want to at least be integrated with what everybody else is doing. So
I like this. There's even an article on design a developer self-service foundation. Like, how interesting that yeah, I'm sure this is a journey that organizations would take to get here.
Yeah. And what was something about a developer platform API?
Yeah. Oops, there we go.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure did I do something that made the...
I think you zoomed in.
Okay. You should define a developer platform API to act as your system's contract. Yeah, I mean, it is so easy because I've done it, to start building the UI for something and then realize, okay, well, now I've coupled this UI to how to get things done. And it turns out that when efficiently large, I may want to write a process that gets the same thing done, because at first it's fine to go in and go to a website and click some buttons and fill some forms out. And you're just so happy that you didn't have to do all the underlying stuff. But then after you do that 5 or 6 or 10 times, or you realize you're stuck doing it because you can't you can't automate it in some other way, maybe even all the way out to a customer level, just depends on what you're doing. Then yeah, you're going to wish that it was API driven. So
can you scroll to the top on that? I wanted.
Yeah.
I'm just curious what the.
Was it this or even further?
Oh, all the way to the top.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is so. I think the articles in here are either they were recently refreshed or whatever, because they're all from a week or so ago.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, coinciding with some of the blog posts and some of the things that.
Yeah. If I start at the
recently.
blog post, when you scroll down and start to see the platform engineering guide, there is a link directly to it, and that got me here. And then I've already clicked on what is platform engineering. I skipped over these other two, and then design a developer self-service foundation is here. Start your journey is here. There's a lot going on.
That is pretty cool. I'm gonna have to go back and read through all that.
Yeah,
because that's definitely new stuff.
Yep. So there's good timing for this, because it's a conversation that is going on at my current position, and I think just in the world in general too. So, so cool. So,
I guess kind of related to that.
Yeah. Oh, I completely lost that window. That all went away.
Wow.
That was cool. Okay, so I have to stop the share and then share again. Which maybe I did, maybe not. Okay, there we go. So the other thing I think we were going to look at is everybody who has been here has seen that yesterday we managed to launch the TheDevTalkShow website. It wasn't without some bumps and bruises, I suppose. And maybe even some wondering if it worked. But it did. And we know it did because it's our oh, look, there we are. Latest episode. There we go.
Yeah, it's funny. We got to scroll to the bottom to see that things change, but it's a fun part of that homepage there.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we, obviously,
no,
we can not only rework the web page, but certainly there's some information here that has to be updated.
Yep. Oh wow.
Like here. So that's next, I think, is update a lot of the text, and that some of that goes for our channel too, because we're still saying that we're on it Wednesdays. But what I thought would be interesting is, I don't know that we'll finish this today, but the idea that I wonder if there is a unit test or a test coming where our component, like we could test all these components, that's fine. But a test where we say, how do we react? How does a component react when it gets like a bad video ID? Or what if the YouTube platform doesn't give us back a latest episode? Like, what do we want the web page to do? Which I don't have the answer for yet. But first, it's kind of, well, shouldn't we just have the unit tests that just sort of detect that this has happened? And then we could say, okay, well, now what's the outcome of that test? Or what do we want to be the good result? And that got me pointed at BUnit. Let's go to the main homepage. See, yeah, okay. So if you haven't heard of BUnit, BUnit is billed as a testing library for Blazor components. I remember when Blazor came out, this particular project came out pretty quickly afterwards. And I think it got a lot of attention very quickly. There's a GitHub repo for it. Yeah, here we go. So, like they say here, testing library for Blazor that makes components that make tests look, feel, and run like regular unit tests. I think not everybody, like there certainly could be arguments that break out about whether it actually isn't a unit test. But the creator of BUnit, and it's funny, I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to say this right, but I'm going to give it a shot and apologize. Eagle Hansen is a Microsoft MVP. and created and promoted BUnit when he came out with it and posted it out. And now look, he's got a whole organization and looks like a good number of contributors, which is great. But the question is, how do you use it?
Right.
So I'm going to start by opening Visual Studio. And one of the first things, well, actually, I think even before installing Visual Studio, I mean, this is one way to do this, I think, and I think this works, is you would definitely need a project.
Okay.
But you don't have to use Visual Studio for this. In fact, their documentation does not use Visual Studio.
They focus on VS Code?
Yeah, and more the CLI, I would say. It's more that they're focused on the CLI. So I think I'll be interested to see if I can, maybe after just trying this, maybe we if we do or do not get this working. I don't really care about render mode for this, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it as none. So I have a new Blazor web app, and I want to add testing to it. So what I might do is say, let's well, it's not that I'm going to need a test project. So I'm going to say an NUnit test project. No, I'm sorry. What I really wanted to say was an XUnit test project. Okay.
Okay.
So that's the first thing that might sound interesting to you is, oh, wait a second. I thought you said we were using BUnit.
Right.
I don't know if that's what you were about to say.
Well, I was looking at the other, like, is from the docs, is that what they recommend doing, or you could use any of those?
So that's a great question, and the answer is that yes, you can use any of them. So let's bring the docs up. Creating a new BUnit test project, and like I said, they're focused on the CLI, which I wouldn't mind trying in a little bit. But here we go. You can create a BUnit test project with the framework of your choice: XUnit, NUnit, MS Test.
Okay.
So that's kind of neat. If you're using Visual Studio, you add a test project to your solution. Although, I wonder if maybe I should have gone ahead and installed this stuff. Or actually, it does say create a test project manually. So let's look at that. Because I want to go back and show you that there's some scaffolding. So first, create a new XUnit, NUnit, MS Test testing project. That's what we just did. Now, we're going to add BUnit to it. And so one way to do that is to right-click on the project and say Manage NuGet Packages. And then what I always forget to do is to click over to Browse. I always forget. I just start typing the package and I say, oh gosh, there's no packages called BUnit anywhere in the world. But that's just because I didn't click on Browse. And here we go, BUnit, testing library for Blazor components. There are some other things here to provide support for like some of the component parts. But I don't know that I need preview. Do I need preview for .NET 8? Maybe. Of course, it's saying here. I'm going to go ahead and pick the preview one. I'm not 100% sure if I need it. I might have been able to use the latest stable. I don't know. So what does BUnit install? Well, it installs a lot. And as we all know, the correct thing to do here is not worry about any of this that's getting added to your project and just say apply. And if you really want to live dangerously, you can just click don't show again. And then we have a bunch of licenses that we have to agree to. And I'm sure they're all fine. So I'm just going to click accept. That's our lives.
This is the demo version of that install, right?
I think that's our lives, though, is we don't really know exactly what we're agreeing to. Okay, now it does say that we're going to go and edit the project file, because they do say that the project's SDK needs to be set to this, which is interesting. Oops, not the comma. Comma was wrong. By default, a unit test project is going to set its project SDK type to Microsoft .net.sdk, but you need to add on .razor. And the target framework is fine. We're happy with this at 8, I think. And then you get some other, you get other package references that maybe you were or weren't expecting. I don't know. But this sample project should have, it has a home. Okay, so I didn't really include a lot here, but it does have a home, and home has a hello world. Okay. So I believe what we can do to write our first test, and this isn't going to be the most exciting test, is that we can use this right here, and we can say, okay, let's see if I can remember what to do here. Is I wonder if when I say that this unit test class is going to inherit from test context, I obviously don't, that's not working. So here we go. It's offering me a suggestion because I have this package reference. You probably want to use BUnit. And it's like, yes, I do. So test context is a BUnit construct. And it's basically a factory that allows you to create components that you can then test off of.
Okay.
And you're going to see the interface feels kind of fluent here. So what I can do is I can say that I want a component. Oh, and I love this. That's actually kind of almost it. GitHub Copilot is saying, hey, you must want me to say render component counter, except that I didn't include the sample pages. So we don't have a counter, but I do have home.
Okay.
I can say home, but the problem is that once again, I need to include, I'm going to, that's the problem. I don't have a reference.
Project?
Yeah, the project's not even included in here yet.
Yep.
So I thought that was cool that it was willing to do that for me. So let's see what that looks like when you do that. Add reference to Blazor app 1. Boom, there it is as a project. There it is. It's all there. It even threw this up there for me. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. Focus on the pages part.
Yeah. So now I have a component and I can do something like this. I can say, oh, look at, wow. Yeah, pretty much. I can say it's kind of like this fluent looking API that says, okay, go find me this element. And in this particular case, I'm just saying, just go find the first H1, which I think is good. Let's go find our, I got to find our home.razor. I didn't mean to pin it. Yeah, our first H1, does it say hello world? Just like that. And that's exactly what it's asking. Is it saying, go find that component, see if the markup matches? This is very much like web testing as code in a way. Like say you were using Selenium or something, except that now with Selenium, it was famous for you. You could do this as code, but it was famous for you basically like telling it to open up a browser and click around and put things in fields and then find out if it looks the way you expect.
Yeah.
This is doing the same thing kind of in a code-based manner. So I'd like to believe that this unit test is going to run.
Yeah. So just a comment around. So is that, because there's also Playwright, which does something kind of similar. And I guess, where would you expect to find that? Like for me, the content of the web page, well, I guess it depends where that content is coming from.
I think it feels more generally like a Playwright thing, right?
Yeah.
Part of the reason why I decided to go with this is because we haven't done anything in our app
we don't
yet.
have any code. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any code. So this is kind of all we can do. But I think some people like testing, all testing as code if possible. And I've seen many frameworks try to do that. I'm just going to run these tests and see what happens.
Okay.
I've seen plenty of people try to accomplish that in various ways. Oh, look, it worked. I guess it might have been more helpful for it not to work. So I'm going to throw in an extra exclamation mark and then run the tests again, because it should fail now, and say, yeah, that's not right. Let's see, where do I get the reason? Oops. Let's make Test Explorer a little bigger. Oh, I made Test Explorer bigger. I didn't actually make what I wanted bigger. The expected text was not found. Okay, that makes sense. So certainly the more you abstract away your project, I think, because some people start using this and then they say, well, what if instead of me testing the component directly, I test what the component is supposed to do? And if the way I might do that is I might add some levels of abstraction, like I might create like a view model and have that be the functional bit that I can unit test, but then I have the component use the view model. So then it starts to beg the question, do I even need a separate test? But
Why wouldn't
why wouldn't you? Well, like, do I need a Blazor? What the main thing that BUnit does is it renders the component for me, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
I can hand it a component and I get out this interface called iRenderedComponent, and then looks like I can act on it in a ton of different ways. If we look at IntelliSense and not let it give us an answer this time, I can look for components within it. I can ask questions like, what are the changes since its first render, since its snapshot, and so on and so forth, that probably allow me to start to try to write code that says, okay, like go do this thing for me. For example, if that may not make a whole lot of sense the way I said it. For example, what if I add a button and the ID of it is say hello, and just going to say hello, and then if I have a paragraph tag that puts in like your name, I guess. Now the trick here is now we need code. I wonder if I'm going to be able to do this all by myself. And I need a public string name. I don't think this stuff necessarily has to be public, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then, okay, so that's interesting. That gives me a lot of the boilerplate, but maybe not as much as I needed. What I probably really wanted to do, oh, and I guess it could be out there.
There you go.
What I probably really want to do here is have my oninitialized. I don't even know if I care about oninitialized. Let's set this to string.empty. And then what if I say, let's see, I think I can say on click. And I don't have anything yet. And then first of all, I got to spell it right anyway. So let's say that we go, I don't know that this has to be public. I'm okay with this. Public, it can be void.
Yeah,
on
it's a void.
Yeah, we'll say hello. Name equals hello world. Okay, well, it's probably what I wanted. Now,
I'm happy with something up there. Oh, because there's nothing in it.
I haven't put anything in yet, so there we go. So the question is now, does that work? I'm going to make this say hello, everyone. So does this work? Let's run the app. Oh, did I run the test project? I don't know if I meant to. Hopefully I ran the app.
Yeah.
Yep. Welcome to your new app. When I click say hello, nothing happens. Probably because we have no interactivity, or yeah, I didn't post. So I have no interactivity in this project. So let's see if we've really learned Blazor here. Let's go ahead and say add interactive server components. All this time that we've used Blazor without a crutch, can this be done? Dot map interactive, isn't it interactive? Map razor components. And then I want add interactive server render mode. That's what I wanted. Okay. So that's great, except I have to do one more thing. I have to make this render mode interactive, right? this or this? I forget already. I think it's this. Okay.
Interactive server. Yep.
So now that I've done all that, but now that's not the only way to do it. But let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if this button lights up. That would make me feel like, oh wow, maybe I've actually started to learn Blazor here. So here's the app. I click say hello, and there it is. Cool, sweet, awesome.
Very nice.
How do I test that pressing the button gives me the outcome I want? Now, I definitely believe that. I think everyone should understand that this is a kind of a contrived demo.
Mm-hmm.
That certainly. Let's see. Say hello. Using the provided CSS selector. So can I do this? And it's already trying to ask me if I want to click it.
Wow.
Because here I said button ID is say hello. And just for folks to understand, I've never done this before. So let's click that. And then let's say component find. But this time it's not going to be the H1. It's going to be a P tag. I only have one. And what did we have it do? We had it say hello, everyone, but I have a feeling that's not going to work because I think I got to have the P tags around it. But I'm just going to write the unit test and see what happens. Now, granted, this may not represent the unit test you want because like I'm mixing a bunch of things, but really we're just trying this out.
Yep.
Yeah, HTML comparison failed. So I actually think that just about everything did what we wanted. The text at text 0 is missing. The element at P5 was not expected. Actual HTML had the tags, and the expected HTML was just this. So I think I'm really close. I think I just need, and this is how you fix unit tests, right? Is you take the value that actually happened and then you just paste it in. Is that how we do it? So now I think my unit test will pass. And again, everybody who says like, well, that's not one unit test. You did two things. We're just learning BUnit here.
Right.
So you can see what I can do. This is the next level. If I wanted to, I can now interact with the form or interact with the page and say, go find this element and do something. And when we clicked on it, if I moved this before, I think that this test is still going to pass as long as I get rid of this.
Right, because at this time it's empty.
Right. So let's see. Let's just make sure the test passes. And it's fine. Just to prove that I'm not, it's not green test syndrome where you write the test first. You never write the failing test, which I think is a real thing. I think if you never write the failing test, then you're not 100% sure if your test tests anything. And clearly now the test fails. So yeah. So that is like the very basics of BUnit. Now, I started watching some folks talk about this. There were folks that actually weren't super happy about this. And they said like, yeah, this really feels like I'm mixing concerns. This feels like more of an integration test. It's not really. So what they would do is they would create a view model or something. They were basically pulling the logic. You could argue that we've embedded logic directly into our component. And so they kind of pulled it out into another class and they tested that class. It's not entirely clear to me like how, if I get that far, then I'm just using XUnit, right? Like where's the BUnit part of it? So I still think though that like not everybody has the same matter of taste. Some people might want to say, hey, I want to test the rendered component. I want to see how all of this stuff comes together, which you could argue is a form of like an integration test or something. I don't actually really care what you want it. It's just here's a way you could write tests based on components.
And some of the stuff that I think was in BUnit that you were showing was about the interactivity parts of it, right? How does it change over time? Like what's the last bit that got rendered?
Yeah, they talk about triggering event handlers. You could trigger the life cycle. So if you're having, you're saying, hey, we're having trouble that the component just seems to be doing something. We don't know why. It could be that some life cycle tests might reveal to you like, oh, it turns out that in on init, it was pre-rendering and we weren't ready for that. We haven't called the server, we haven't gotten the data, but it is trying to pre-render, which is true by default. No matter which render mode you use, Blazor is out there trying to pre-render everything until you tell it not to. So,
Okay.
I mean, I think it's interesting, and what I would like to do when I think about our own project, I don't know that we would accomplish this in a short amount of time, but I might not even really need BUnit for this, but maybe, I don't know. I would like to be able to test how the YouTube video service reacts. How does this service react when, you know, the response you get back from YouTube isn't perfect? Which today, what we're doing is if YouTube doesn't give back a length at all of items in the YouTube response, then we just return string.empty. But what's the component going to do with that?
Right.
And I suppose what we could do is we could have a BUnit test that basically says, okay, when the component returns string.empty, you should react this way. In fact, we might even just take the component off. Just say, don't do anything. And we could at least test that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could also test the other way where it produces the markup that you expect. Because of the way our component works, we could test how it reacts to having width and height and how it, what it does and doesn't do. And I'm also kind of interested in saying, like, what about the latest video service? What if the key is missing? How should the component react? Right now, I think we just blow up. But
based on our deployment knowledge.
Yeah. I actually think if I remove the key here, which I can do very quickly, I can go to our user secrets, make the key go away, save it, and then come back to our view. And so now you can see API key is missing. And if I run the app, I don't think we get a good result. And I suppose you could start by writing tests to say, here's what I'd rather you do instead of this. So yeah.
And part of that is us not handling the 403, right?
We're not handling the 403 exactly, right? Like I got a little lucky here that even the line of code that it decided to put up, but I parameterized the API key. So we're saved. It's tough, man. It's tough to be careful.
I know.
But yeah, I guess instead of the HTTP request return to 403, but what I think they really mean is that, let's see, who returned the 403? I guess we did. I think the get from JSON async is what blew up.
It probably bubbled all the way up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really, that was Google who returned it from the YouTube.
Right. And then we could catch it and then do something better than this. Like we could even just theoretically just not show it.
Right.
Or we might have a pre-canned one that's like, watch this video, or I don't know.
Yeah.
So I feel like you write all that code. Now the question is, how do I test it? And I don't know if BUnit is going to be the answer. Like maybe. BUnit is certainly very popular and it's well respected in the Blazor world as being the unit testing framework. But we'll find out. I would say we haven't tried it yet. Yeah. Other than this demo that you saw. So yeah, maybe exciting. I don't know. I agree with you. You brought up Playwright. It'd be interesting to figure out, how does that work together? Do they work together? Are they complementary? Do they do different things? I don't know the answer to that yet.
Yeah, it would be worth seeing if there's a place for each of them, because I think there is, right? I think having the ability to test the black box of the component and what it does when you feed it data versus Playwright being the data's all there and we're just like looking at the integration, how do things interact with each other once they're all up on the same page?
Yeah. So we just have a few minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this, and
Okay.
let's go to PowerShell. And my basic source directory is just source.
Okay.
So I have .NET new, and I have a list. I always forget that list is deprecated. And we don't have any of the BUnit templates in here. No, we don't. It doesn't look like we do. Not even if I scroll all the way up. Okay. So on their website, they say if you want to install the templates for use with the CLI, oh, that's interesting. If you want to install with the CLI, you can say .NET new -- install. Or actually, you don't even need the -- install anymore. And you can say BUnit dot. Is it going to get it? Is it going to get it? I was hoping the autocomplete might figure it out. BUnit template. Following template packages are installed. Okay, so now I'm going to run .NET list again. And we have, at least I believe we do. Here we go. This is it. BUnit test project. So that's kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you can do is you can, so I don't have a file new project ready to go yet, but there's some other interesting things that happen too. Let me go back to oh boy, I don't want to show that. So let's bring this over. This is our current TDTS web project. So something I wasn't able to do before, you saw me kind of manually fill it out. I could come here and say add new project. And now, just because we did that .NET install, I now have BUnit test project.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And if I install it this way, it's going to set it up similar to what we did. The other thing you can do is I can go to TDTS web. Whoops, I can almost go to it. And from in here, I can say .NET new BUnit, because that's the name of the template. One of the things you have to tell it is which framework do you want to use. We used XUnit last time. I think just for fun, I might just try NUnit here, but you can also put in MS Test.
Mm-hmm.
And then you want to give it the name of the project. And so I'm going to say the devtalkshow.web.tests. And let's see what it does. I've never done this before from the command line. And interesting. The Dev Talk Show depends on Microsoft.NET Test SDK greater than 1612. But interesting, an approximate best match of 17 was resolved. That's probably good.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what I want. So I don't know that this is going to work the way I want, but I think I can go to Visual Studio Code. Let's see what it did. I probably did this in the wrong spot now that I think about it. Yeah, see, I ended up doing it here at the root instead of inside.
Oh, inside source.
Yeah. So, can I move it? Okay.
Well, you want to move it in one more, right?
Do I? It's in source.
But
yeah, you're probably right. Yep, you're right. Okay. Now, I don't know if it works, but the key is that you can do all this stuff from the command line as well. Because I'm not sure how I would set up. I think there's a way that I would basically set up a way to run these unit tests, and I just don't know that we'd get that in the next couple minutes here.
Yeah.
So what's happened now in Visual Studio is nothing, because it hasn't actually been added to the solution.
Yeah.
So I should be able to say add existing project. I think I could have done this out. Oops, I could have done this. Where are we? TDTS web, and then source, and then Dev Talk Show, and then tests. And it added it. Now there aren't.
There we go.
It's interesting because they provide you with tests based on what they expect your main project is. They're like, oh yeah, here's the counter test.
Mm-hmm.
And they did some of the stuff we did too. They checked if markup matches. They click the button and see if it changes, stuff like that. So this obviously is not going to pass right now because we don't even have a counter component. But if you're brand new to BUnit, you can create the test project, look at it, and it starts to give you the idea of how this works. the test context is out here with I don't know why there's a separate test context here, but clearly because we didn't use it. But instead of deriving directly off of test context, there's this text context wrapper, and they create the test context in a setup method instead of you just derive from test context and boom, you've got it. There are probably good. I think there's good reasons for that, but we didn't do that. So
no.
So yeah, I mean that's just that's just getting started. There's a lot more to learn.
Yeah.
We've kind of reached the edge of what I've done so far.
Okay. Well, at least now we've got a way that if we want to, and we probably should, unit unit tests in the Blazor components that we write. We've got a way to do that kind of nicely.
Yeah. I mean, I would like for them to react better when links are bad, or if somebody just makes a mistake, and it doesn't have to throw an exception like that. But then what should it do? And then how do we ensure that it's doing it? So
definitely. Cool.
Yeah.
That was good stuff.
Yep. Cool stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you're watching us now or in the future, feel free to hit the like button or comment on what else you'd like to see. There's a lot we want to dive in with Blazor on our own website as well. Sometimes just takes a little time to kind of look into it and see what's the next thing to do. But hopefully this helps you out. And if you weren't looking at BUnit before, maybe go take a look at it now as a way that you can write some tests for your Blazor apps. So, all right, Rich. Well,
very cool.
Thanksgiving weekend is here.
Yeah. Not
almost
too soon.
So have a great holiday.
You too. You as well. Enjoy. Good luck with the tournament.
Yeah. We've got family on Thursday, like a lot of American families do, and then we are heading out on Friday, and we're gonna watch a bunch of hockey. So
excellent. That should be fun.
Yeah. So hey, have a great rest of your workday, Rich, and you do that too. And hopefully you can get to your morning stand-up. And we should be back next week. So we look forward to seeing you next time on the Dev Talk Show.